Well, welcome to the Rockpit, Eli. Today I'm, joined by Eli from Life Pilot out of South Australia, who have just dropped their debut full-length album. Um, Congratulations on the record, and welcome to the Rockpit.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me on.
Our absolute pleasure, mate. Now, I was unaware of you guys, and please excuse my ignorance until this came across my emails. But you guys have been around since 2012, and you've finally released your first full length album. What's taken the time to do a full length album? I know that there have been a couple of EPs and a bunch of singles, but what's taken the time to create the debut?
Well, that's a good question. As you said, we've been around for a long time, and usually a band would probably release an album a little quicker than we did. We were sort of very much of the opinion that we wanted to, at least for the first few years of our career, just lay down some groundwork with demos and EPs, and all of our EPs were a little longer. I mean, realistically, if we'd added another song or two to them, we probably could have called them albums as it was. But we were sort of opposed to the idea of doing a full length record until we either had sort of maybe some label backing or a little bit more of a sort of foothold in the industry. And then around the time that we started thinking of now is the time, we had a lot of flux in the band. We had some of our original members sort of retired from music, and we ended up kind of having to find our feet again as a band. So that after a year or two of sort of swapping some members out and doing a bit of touring and just sort of releasing singles and just kind of testing the water, we sort of felt like, okay, we're in a really good spot now to do this. Let's get into writing a record and making a real statement piece. And that's when the pandemic hit. And unfortunately, we were sort of thrust back into looking after our own individual needs. Most of the people in the band at the time were sole traders, myself, drum teacher, and artists, and we were all going, well, where are we going to get our rent from? And the band kind of took a back seat for a while because it wasn't paying for our lives. And then when things finally started to turn around and get back to a point where things were comfortable and we could see sort of a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel through that period, we went, right, let's get back into it. And from that stage, then it was really just a matter of the logistics of it. We wanted to do as much of it ourselves as we could. We built the studio that I'm sitting in today, to make the record in the first place. We recorded and engineered all of it. The only thing we outsourced was the final mix to Declan White, who's an amazing engineer out of Melbourne. And that was kind of it. It's been a long time coming, but good things come to those who wait, we say.
Absolutely, and the album is a testament to that. I'm completely blown away by the record. So it's a really big tip of the hat to you guys, and obviously that sent me back down the rabbit hole of the earlier material. I like the progression of the band. I like the new
Awesome.
direction and the new sound of the band. And certainly on this album, it really is it's a good swift kick to the face. I love the brutality of it.
Fantastic.
It's mean and nasty in all the right places.
Excellent. That's fantastic to hear. I mean, yeah, we definitely wanted to, like I said, make a statement piece on this record, as all bands would do with a full length. But we've had such a long time as a band. We have evolved quite a bit, but we've sort of tried to stay true to what we wanted to do to begin with, which was just write angry, fast paced, powerful music. That has its foot in that real like chaotic kind of a raw and ugly swift kick in the face world, like you said. And it was a real pleasure to kind of work on these songs and be able to have like a larger body of work to be able to sort of spread our wings within our own sound, and I guess experiment and find out a little bit more about who we are as a band, because when you only do shorter releases, you're trying to kind of pack a lot into a small time frame. You can't cover everything, or maybe you can't spend as much time in a certain sonic environment as you'd like to. So it was really nice to have 12 tracks to just play, really.
Agreed. And when you talk about the band going through lineup changes and member changes, did that affect the way that the songwriting sort of worked?
A little, but thankfully the core group of the band sort of has remained through the whole period. You know, we've still got three original members in the band: myself, our bass player Nick, and Angus, the vocalist, and Will, our what we would consider, you know, our longest serving guitarist at this point, has been in the band for I think about a decade at this point. He was sort of the first person who came in after one of our original members left. So, you know, there's three to four members of the band that really are, you know, just this core of Life Pilot that has seen a lot of, you know, what we've been through. And our newest member, Jake, is a real force of writing to be reckoned with. You know, he's basically written us a second album already. I think he's pretty keen to stretch his wings on the next round. But yeah, it did affect it, but I think more than anything, it allowed us to grow, because the biggest member changes that we had were some of our original guitar players leaving, and they were predominantly, especially, you know, Jake Long, who was, you know, his Angus, our singer's brother. They started the band, so he was very much, you know, in the early years, the creative guy, the direction of everything, a lot of the lead songwriting. So when he left, we all had to step up. But I think in doing that, it allowed us all to find our own personality and voice within the band. So yeah, it affected it, but I think in a positive way.
So when you look at that, and then you look at the fact that you guys have recorded and produced this record yourselves, how tough does that become out of what you do? So you write what you do, you produce what you do, you record what you do. It must be a nice feeling to be able to be so hands-on and so in control of what you guys are doing. But on the other hand, do you think that you become too critical on yourselves because it is so
That's a very good
close?
question. Yeah, that's a very good question. It definitely can turn into that. Yeah, we've always prided ourselves on being a very DIY band, and it doesn't just stop at the writing and the recording and the producing. You know, all of our music videos are done in-house. You know, in the early years it was me, and in the most recent years it's our bass player Nick, who's been doing some amazing work, and all of our graphic design is done by our singer Angus, who's an incredible artist. So, you know, we try to make Life Pilot as sort of all-encompassing of you know, a project as we can. But like you say, that can get to a point where it is very close to us, and it is hard to let things go when you can sort of endlessly tweak things. And definitely the record was something that, you know, I was very conscious that we could get sort of stuck in that endlessly tweaking and changing and kind of overcooking mindset. And I really wanted to avoid that. So, you know, it took a long time to make, and we definitely could have continued to tweak on it. But you know, there were certain decisions that I think sort of were made at times that were like, you know what, like let's let this be. This is good. We're happy with this. We're proud of this. You know, as we evolve as people, and you know, we listen to these songs over and over and over again. Of course, we might want to change it, and as musical trends change around us during the production time frame, you know, you might want to go, oh, that's cool. We could do something like that. But you know, really, I think the most important thing is to get to the other side of it and get it out and show people what we've, you know, been living for the last few years. And then once we're on the other side of it, we can do whatever we want. The freedom is there again. But yeah, we set out with a pretty clear vision on this record, like how we wanted it to feel and how we wanted it to sound. And you know, as we got closer and closer to achieving that, I think, you know, we were pretty happy to kind of stop fiddling, so to speak.
Absolutely, and I mean the results really do speak for themselves. But I speak to so many artists that do, you know, self-produce and self-record, and I kind of I always like to hear what the battle is within, you know, the band. It's like, how far do we push this? How far do we take it, or do we just bite the bullet and say, hey, let's get it out there? Um,
Mm,
because obviously you get to a point where you know what you want to record. It's only when you start to
mm,
listen back that you want to go, maybe we could do
yeah.
this, we could do that. But I guess there's a rawness and there's an honesty in doing it that way as well, in doing it yourselves. Is that it's all
Yeah.
you. The you know, and I really do tip the hat as to, you know, the overall production of this record. It really is a great listen. In headphones, it's incredible. I love it. I just really enjoy it.
Excellent.
So
That's
it's
fantastic.
yeah,
We definitely wanted to kind of amp up the yeah, the texture on this record. I mean, you know, we're a very like smash and grab kind of band. You know, if you see us live, it's chaotic, it's noisy, it's in your face. But you know, I think it's very important if you're that kind of band to not just have that one mode and to have other strings to your bow, and that was something that we really wanted to explore with the production on this, was to make sure that, when there were moments that weren't just in your face and chaotic, that there was something there that, like you say, you listen on headphones and you can hear all this other stuff going on. There's little textures, little bits of production. We didn't want it to be a record where we were reliant on that. We want to go out and play these shows and not have to have, tons and tons of production and stupid, like, in-depth backing tracks playing 90% of the music. We wanted it to be, you know, raw enough that we could play it as a band and just have those little touches there. But those touches were sort of meaningful and impactful, and, could kind of elevate the record from what we'd done previously.
Excellent. Yeah, and I mean it certainly works, the progression, as I said, going down the rabbit hole and going back to the first demo EP. It's this whole new world for you guys, and I really do commend that. Now, speaking about touring and playing live, you guys are in no less than, what, 9 days about to kick off
Mm.
the album tour in at the Greaser Bar in Brisbane. It's a pretty full-on tour that you've got happening there. So working your way from the top of the East Coast all the way back down to Adelaide. What can we expect from these shows?
Well, I mean, anyone who has seen us before, I guess you maybe know what to expect. It's going to be pretty full on. But for those who haven't seen a live pilot show, I mean, we are known for breaking ourselves, our instruments, stages, singers doing backflips off of drum kits, guitar players running around the venue, and, all sorts of chaos. And it it's for us, it's very cathartic playing live. It's not something that we get to do very often. And we liken it to our therapy. So, the world is a tough place sometimes, and it can kind of get the better of you. So when we get on stage, really it is about putting on a good show, but it is also about having moments that we really truly enjoy, that we can, hopefully, inspire other people to have that same experience. We want people to come to our shows and get weird and mosh and throw down and, do silly things and have fun, because there's not many opportunities in life to do that, to really let loose and let it all hang out and have those moments. So that's a live pilot show in a nutshell. A lot of feedback, a lot of noise, a lot of antics, a lot of fun, but definitely, a cathartic experience for all, hopefully.
Amazing. I look forward to it. So, and in the past, I mean, you guys have, you've played with some pretty big names. Every Time I Die, Hell Yeah, um, Census Fail. Has there been a particular favourite show that you guys have played over the years?
Ooh, favorite show. I'm not sure if we have a favorite show. I mean, all of those supports were fantastic. I mean, definitely, the Norma Jean, Converge, Every Time I Die, like those were really huge ones for us, because those are the bands that made us make this band. They had direct influences on the sound of Life Pilot. Not a rehearsal goes by that those bands aren't referenced at some point. So they were pretty special. But honestly, I think like our favorite show that we've probably ever played was actually a show in Perth. I think was in maybe 2013, 2014. We were flown over there to play a weekend of shows, and one was sort of this like youth festival type show. And we sort of didn't really expect too much of it. It seemed like a smaller scale kind of thing. And we get to this venue, and it was just packed. It was just absolutely packed with people. And we were actually a man down on that tour. Unfortunately, one of our guitar players wasn't available, and the other one came down with the flu as we landed. So he was like beside himself. He could barely like see straight. So he was unfortunately having to hold it down for us. But when we got there, everything just fell into place, and we ended up playing one of the most like powerful sets I think we've ever done. The drums ended up getting dragged down into the mosh pit itself, and I found myself sort of surrounded by 300 kids who had all raided my stick bag and had drumsticks and were ready to kind of like unleash havoc on the drums, which is honestly kind of terrifying. But I'll never forget that moment. It was one of those moments that was just like that visual was sort of just like a photo in my mind, and it was terrifying, but also really like heartening. It was this really wholesome moment of like, wow, these people are really into what we're doing, and we're having a great time despite all the difficulties we've had, getting this show to work and getting, our band there. And, so it might not have been with some big name, but it was certainly a very special moment. And yeah, thinking back, we've got lots of little moments like that all scattered throughout our band. So those big support shows are great, and we're always happy to, to rub shoulders with the people who inspired us to make music. But I think the most special shows for us are the ones that hopefully we're going to go out and see a few of on this tour. Just ones off the beaten path at places we're not expecting anything, and hopefully we get surprised.
I think you will be. I think you will be. I think you'll get a great reaction from the crowd. I mean, if the album is anything to judge by. Have you had much of a chance to road test the material prior to this? You sort of said it's been a little while between shows.
We have a little. We've played a lot of shows in and around South Australia. We've been a little landlocked there while we've been doing the record because we didn't want to undertake anything too big while we were sort of stuck in production mode. But we did do a run of rural South Australian shows at the end of last year, and we used that as a test for this tour. We sort of went out and we played, maybe half the album's worth of songs, just sort of scattered throughout the different shows, just to see the response, see which ones felt like they belonged in certain places in the set, which ones were good live songs, which ones maybe weren't. The unfortunate but good problem that we had was that they all ended up working really well live. And we went, we've now got 12 songs that we need to fit into our 10-song set, plus all of the other songs from our 10 years as a band. So now we've got big problems trying to pick a set order, but that's okay. That's a good problem to have. We're happy that, all the songs we wrote have actually, turned out to be pretty okay live. So.
Yeah, yeah, they have a roadworthiness to them, which is great. Now, going back to the album, I mean, the themes of the album are kind of dark in a lot of ways. It pushes, boundaries, I think, of social norms and sort of mental spaces, I guess. How personal and how therapeutic is the stories that are being told within these songs?
Yeah, extremely. I mean, Angus, our vocalist, is the man behind the stories on the record, but definitely a lot of them sort of relate to us, other band members. He's an incredible wordsmith and has a great way of sort of encapsulating certain feelings and certain emotions. But yeah, for him especially, this is an incredible like personal record and something that we sort of talked about on the back end after it was all said and done and written, because we sort of let him have his space to do what he does best. We don't tend to have too many opinions on his side of things because he does such a great job of it, and at the end of it, it's always nice to delve in and discover what our record is about in a way. But I think the overall overwhelming feeling was that a lot of our earlier releases, as you would as a young youthful band, are sort of you against the world. And while there is still an element of that on the record, I think it is far more of a personal sort of us against ourselves kind of record. As you age and you become more introverted and introspective, you tend to kind of I feel like fight your own inner demons a little more than when you're a younger person and you're kind of looking at the world through a certain maybe less experienced lens. So there's definitely some more socio-political kind of commentary on there, but it always sort of relates back to how we view ourselves, somewhat of maybe a negative way at times, but an honest way. And I think something that especially Angus, is quite good at is being very true about the person that he is through his lyrics. We're not a band that wants to kind of pretend to be anything other than what we are. We're all humans. We all make mistakes. We're all very imperfect beings, and we wanted that to come through in the lyrics. Whether it was talking about relationships lost or loved ones lost or more social commentary. It comes back to us as individuals being flawed beings and not necessarily having all the answers and all the insight, but that's the human experience.
Exactly it is. And I mean, it's funny when you sort of mentioned that the momentum that COVID sort of lost for everybody. I think there's a lot to be sort of said there, and there's a lot that I mean, I think I found that with a lot of people that I've spoken to, there were a lot of different aspects of life and a lot of different approaches to, I guess, people's mental health through all of that as well, you know, and
Mm.
the beauty about well-written lyrics is that they can not only tell a personal story, but they can also be interpreted and adapted to, you know, an individual's feelings, which I did on a few of the tracks on the album. So for
Mm.
that reason, that's why I sort of asked that question. It's topically it's quite relatable in places and quite broad spread, and it's nice to find an adventure or a journey that's very similar to what you've shared yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that was the thing in discovering it through, the end of the record, and we sort of asking us, all right, so what are these songs about? What have you written here? And hearing him go through it, even when we were in the stage of putting together some of the music videos and the more visual content for the record, that was a really interesting experience when we put together Mayflower, which was the third single. And we were kind of deciding what to do with the music video and, asking Angus, what was he thinking about when he was writing the record or that particular song. And he said something about, how he reflected on his relationship with his grandmother who passed away, and that, how he realized, in many ways in his life, he was sort of searching for that relationship, whether it be, with a woman in a relationship, if that same sort of like comforting love, or whether it was just, having someone that you would trust that much in your life, or, just that sort of comfort that we as young men find in, in our grandmothers or grandparents. And I had just lost my own grandmother, a week or two prior. And, that really hit home to me. I was feeling that sense of loss, and it was just interesting to hear that, this guy that I play in a band with had, very much, put his finger on the pulse of what I was sort of feeling at that moment. And that's why we ended up moving with that video into the idea of finding some old, archival family footage. We actually found some footage of some of our old grandparents. My grandma makes an appearance there for a moment. And that was a really beautiful thing to kind of tie it in. We didn't want to just use stock footage of just random old people. We wanted to actually show, hey, like these are the people that we come from, and these are the people close to us, and that's who this song is about. So if you watch that video, those
Mm.
flashes and those cuts
Yeah, yeah,
are,
yeah.
our ancestors, which is kind of cool. So yeah, definitely going on that ride has been a time for sure.
Yeah, no, it's amazing stuff. I really do enjoy what you do. Now, I got to ask you about the name. Where does the name come from, and how did that come about? Because it's the least hardcore name I could think of. Um, you know,
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
I saw it come up on my media list, and it's like Life Pilot. I was like, okay, yep, all right. The name kind of
Yeah.
put me off a little bit initially, I guess, but
Yeah, no, that's a fair statement. Look, the name was this was decided before myself and Nick and our previous guitarist Tim joined the band, and it was just the brothers, the two Long brothers project. And I believe Jake, our old guitar player, he really wanted to have a band called Life Jacket. So this was right. I'm going to have Life Jacket. It's going to be with my brother. It's going to be great. And Angus, I don't think liked the name Life Jacket at all. So went, well, Life Pilot's okay. Let's go with that. And it was very much a side project. They had another band, which is how I met them. I filled in for their old band, and then that sort of wound up. And they went, oh, hey, we got this new project. Do you want to jump in? It's called Life Pilot. And I went, yeah, sure, whatever. And then we started working together. We started playing, we got a demo going. We brought in some other people. And then all of a sudden, we were ready to release a demo and start playing shows. And no one had really queried the name or really thought much about it. And then that was it. We put the demo out. We thought, it's fine. We're just a little Adelaide band. This will just get us some shows and we can figure it out later. And then Triple J picked it up and immediately added it to rotation. And we had all these people like going, oh, who's this band out of Adelaide? Life Pilot. Wow, they're, kind of cool or whatever. And we got on Soundwave Festival 6 months later. And all of a sudden, we were established as Life Pilot. And we all went, do we really even like this name? And the answer was kind of no. Or at least it was maybe not what we would have called ourselves had we sat down and kind of conceptualized the band and everything. It was sort of just a step-by-step evolution. But what I will say is that over the years, I think we have grown into our name, and definitely, what we talk about in our music and the things that we feel like. I think the name Life Pilot kind of it encapsulates it all. We are here living our lives, the pilots of our own destiny, and our band is really very much about being honest and truthful and real in our experience. So I guess, in an odd way, it does kind of bring it all in, but it certainly wasn't a planned name, but at least we're not called Life Jacket.
This is true. This is true. But what a great name. And at the end of the day, it does adapt. It really does adapt. But it's
Mm.
probably a little bit misleading initially, but yeah, look, it works well within the context of everything. So now you mentioned, you got paid attention by Triple J and things started to blow up for you guys. Were you guys just completely blown away by the fact that within 6 months you are doing a festival like Soundwave?
Absolutely. I mean, that really took us by surprise. Like our immediate kind of zoom into the public eye was not anything we anticipated. I mean, we only had a couple of songs under our belt by the time we actually, got on the radar of these places, and all of a sudden, we were there. We're playing stages the same time as North Lane, and like it was silly. Um, so we definitely, I think, were caught on the back foot. And I think had we maybe waited off another year or so or 6 months before really kind of like pushing the go button, then maybe we would have been in a better position to kind of capitalize on that a little bit. I think definitely in retrospect, we could have done a lot more with the opportunities that we were given in the early period of our band, but it just like we just personally, some of us weren't in positions to really go out and tour relentlessly and do all that sort of stuff. So, that's just kind of how it happened, I guess. You can't change it. But it was definitely a pretty like eye-opening experience of like, oh man, like if once you hit on something, you got to be ready to kind of like run with it. Um, so, since then we've been kind of, I guess, playing catch up. But that's okay because through that, we were afforded a lot of really great opportunities, and you know, I can't I can't complain about big outlets taking an interest in our band, even if maybe we weren't as ready as we could have been at the time.
Mm. And I mean, comparing, that early initial success with the reaction to the album. I mean, it's been at what, 3 weeks now, about
Mm.
3 weeks for the album. How has the media's response and how has the public's response been to it? What's the feedback been like for the record?
It's been fantastic. I mean, we really didn't know what to expect because we'd been quiet for so long. Our last single release was in 2019. So, we knew that this was going to have to be something that, was, I guess, a bit of a fire starter again for us. But it was really heartening to see so many people like passionate about the album when it dropped and the lead up to it, saying, when is it coming out? And once we started releasing singles again, I think we saw, that interest in our band was still there, maybe a little tucked away and a little harder to find than maybe it had been in the early days. But, there was still a great amount of people that were passionate about what we were doing and that were excited to see that we were still doing it. There were a lot of bands that we came up touring with, early on who unfortunately, have all sort of fallen by the wayside. And honestly, we are kind of the last one of that scene of bands still around, which is, we're kind of proud that we sort of outlasted it all and we're still here and we're still kicking, still thrashing. But all of the people that we've, met along the way were all very like excited to sort of see that, hey, we're still out there flying the flag for everyone. So yeah, it's been great. And we're really hoping that these shows sort of then also catapult that maybe to that next level again and yeah, see what's next.
So the 8 shows, I mean, it's a pretty relentless run. So I mean, certainly from Brisbane through to Melbourne, it's pretty full on. Um, I guess you guys itching to be back on the stage as well, and having being able to play to hopefully a whole heap of new fans as well. I think the shows are going to be really good for you. I think there'll be a great success behind those, and hearing the stories of broken instruments, broken band members, broken drum kits, broken stages. It all adds to it being a show to be seen. I'm really, yeah, look, I'm really excited for what lays ahead of you guys. I wish I had have discovered you guys earlier, I really do. But, I'm glad I have discovered you guys at this point. Um, Is there anything that you'd like to say to the fans or to the general public out there on behalf of the band to help promote the record?
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you to everyone who's actually spent their time to listen to it or purchased it. I mean, we ended up hitting #1 on the iTunes charts, on the release weekend, and that was something we never anticipated. So obviously, people have been, happy to part with some hard-earned money, which is, a big deal in modern times.
Yeah,
So, first of all, a big thank you to everyone, but also, to those who are maybe just first hearing about us, like yourself. We've been around for a very long time, and we're not going anywhere anytime soon. So we would love, if anything that's been said here has piqued your interest, if you go and check out our music, check out, our various social media pages and see what we're all about, and come down to a show. I mean, if you want to get to know Life Pilot and get to know what we're about, and also, come and say hello and to meet us as people, and have a chat and have a beer and, buy a t-shirt and all the rest. We would love to see you. That would mean a lot to us. And coming down to a show is definitely the best way to do all of that. So yeah, check out and see if there's a show date near you and come and hang out with us.
perfect. Thank you, Eli. I think that's a great way to wrap things up for today. Again, thank you for your time. Thanks for taking time out of the middle of your day to chat with us. We really do appreciate it. And I wish you all the best of continued success for the album. And obviously that the tour makes some incredible memories and new fans for you guys.
Amazing. Thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you at a show.
I'll try to get there. Don't you worry. I'll try to
Excellent.
get there.
Fantastic.
All right, Eli. Thank you again, my friend. Have a great day. Stay safe.
Thank you. You have a great day too, my friend. See you later.
Thank you. Bye.